All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I'm Raf Diallo alongside Anthony Pyne of RTÉ Sport Online. It's a big week for the Republic of Ireland when it comes to soccer, at least with the 21s possibly having the opportunity to qualify directly for the European Championships. And it's all going to be live on RT2 and the RT Player. Ireland under 21s playing Italy from 4 o'clock. That's when you can tune in live. And then straight after the final Nations League game of this window where Ireland play Ukraine in Poland, which is exactly where Ed Leahy and Cunningham, if people are actually watching this, that's exactly where he is. So Ed, in terms of a scene set, I know you'd been promising all this stuff about having like a rooftop shot from the top of your hotel, but that's been foiled now.
It has, Raf. We've been done by the weather gods. Literally just blew in. There's been a storm forecast all day, but it just blew in over Woods.
But listen, hold on. It's a lot worse than that. We woke up this morning, me and Ed, and we had emails on our phone from the Polish government, no less. And don't ask me how they got our phone numbers. That's another question, kind of national security, privacy laws. Anyway, let's park that for a start. But basically, it was to say that there was a severe weather warning. Not only that, we might be advised to head to the nearest shelter at some point during the day. That's the one I got. That's what I get on my phone. So just to give it a little bit more perspective, Raf, Ed's trying to make out, a little bit of drizzly rain, but not more serious than that. I hope the viewers, are concerned about our safety.
I hope they are. I'm very worried, as you can probably tell as well.
Anyway, the good thing about that, Raf, is that if it blows in today, we should have a nice warm summer's day for the match tomorrow, and it'll be a late kick-off as well, 8:45 local time, so no excuses really this time compared to Yerevan anyway, at least. So there is that. Yeah,
when you started your answer there, I think you were trying to pronounce the local area. Is it Łódź or Lodz? Or how does it work?
What do you think?
Lodz. We got it off the taxi man yesterday, didn't he? I was going with Łódź, the old Only Fools and Horses classic episode. I don't know if people remember. I was going to go with Łódź, but he Lodz.
I thought you said Łódź.
Łódź. I thought about we in different taxis. Was that a different taxi man talking to you?
Definitely.
You were asleep. To be honest, you admit you were asleep for most of that during the end.
Check with Tony O'Donoghue's 6-1 report. I'm sure he's given a...
Ed was very antisocial in the taxi, it has to be said, yesterday. Physically, mentally exhausted. I didn't even get a word out of him. It's the only 3-hour taxi ride I've been on with somebody. Literally didn't get a word out of him for the whole... Didn't contribute to the crossword. Didn't contribute to the crossword at all, did you?
I didn't actually, no. It was harder than I was expected, actually.
Poor show.
I was hit with a male swan early on, and then that
was... Let me act right, lads. You too, right? Male swan, give it to me.
Signet.
3 letters. Everybody says it, don't they? 3 letters. 3 letters. So you don't even know. The 2 lads don't even know.
Okay, I feel a bit better.
Yeah, what is it? A cob?
Is it a cob? He's quick on his phone, isn't he? Quick on his phone, and he's on that Google thing, isn't he?
We went from
Signet to Pen, and then eventually we got a cob. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll move on from that general knowledge segment now to the actual football. So just one last thing on the area, actually, Ed. Now, as you said, you probably haven't had a chance to kind of have a look around, but obviously we know why Ukraine have to play there. There's obviously, if you look at the news and the whole situation, what's happening on Ukrainian territory, that's why Ireland have to play them there, and all their kind of designated home matches are. But do you get a sense of sort of that it's kind of like a home from home temporarily, at least for Ukraine and their and also for their fans?
No, I don't actually. To be honest, there's the Ukraine press conference later on, so I'm looking to ask, why they came here. But I would imagine it's based of just the fact of they'd need a UEFA stadium, and in the likes of the big stadium in Warsaw would probably be too big for these sort of games. So this, it makes sense. It's a big city still, so I imagine there will be a big diaspora here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what sort of attendance shows up. But I imagine it'll be close to full, hopefully.
We're looking at those scenes, Raf, on the Armenia game, Ukraine-Armenia game a few days ago. There was more than a sprinkle in the Ukrainian supporters there, where they pretty dominated the stadium. It wasn't the biggest stadium, but looked really, the atmosphere looked really kind of really energised inside the stadium, which I think is what they're after. Like, Ed says no point in taking it to a 50, 60,000 stadium having a half. I don't think that helps anybody, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I think both the Ukrainian players and the Irish players will respond to that type of, kind of near capacity stadium, albeit at a reduced capacity.
Yeah. Now, Ireland are coming into this game, obviously, off the back of a very good win over Scotland, the 3-0 on Saturday in Dublin. And I mean, I suppose starting on the kind of tactical tweaks that Stephen Kenny had made, what did you make of it, especially in comparison to the game against Ukraine a few days earlier?
Yeah, it's a fair question, Raf. I think it's been coming. I think it's been coming for some time. I'd probably even look back to our games at the tail end of last season, which we're actually on that unbeaten run. Even the wins away to Azerbaijan and Luxembourg, although we were very comfortable and comprehensive victories, I always felt kind of defensively, always looked a little bit open even against those countries. And I thought maybe to persist with this system of play, kind of back three and wing backs, especially against the better teams, I always felt we'd have to tweak things a little bit further up the pitch and sacrifice one of those front three players and introduce another central midfield player. It didn't happen till the game against Scotland. I thought we suffered a little bit because of it against Armenia and Ukraine, but the change was made against Scotland. And I think in possession and out of possession, we looked far better for it. So I can't see anything changing now going forward. I think that's a system which best suits us. I think the added the advantage of having like more legs, more athleticism in that central area of the pitch, the running part of Jason Knight and Jason Malone, be a bit more tenacity in there as well, helps us certainly defensively. It did. I thought we looked rock solid, Raf. I don't know what you thought, but even when Scotland had the ball and we dropped into a deeper defensive shape, I was never worried. Once we dropped into that like compact defensive shape, we looked very secure. And probably the first time in quite some time, I haven't been really nervous looking at us when we haven't got possession of the ball. And I didn't think we lost anything going forward either, Raf. Some people say, well, you lose one of them front men and an extra man in midfield, you're going too defensive minded. But I don't think that's the case. I still think we carried as much, if not more, of an attacking threat with those kind of a partnership up front, which is what we had. You don't really get that with a front three, Raf. You get a lot of rotation and movement ahead of the ball, but I think if you were to ask all of those Irish forwards in the squad, would you rather playing a kind of a loose front three or as a front two partnership with somebody, playing, 10, 15 yards from somebody from the majority of the game who you can link up with and connect with? I think the majority of the players, the centre forwards, would like that kind of partnership. I think that's what you saw with Obafemi and Troy Parrott actually enjoy playing each other. And we saw a little connection with there and maybe even potentially a blossoming partnership going forward.
On that note as well, one thing I noticed from the first two games, and I said it to Stephen at the press conference after Ukraine, I said, you've basically played no out-and-out centre forwards in your formation, with Callum Robinson, Chidozie, Troy Parrott, and even with Jason Knight then in the three in the second game. And I think, you'd know better than this, if the centre halves need to be occupied, and a good, like what Obafemi brought to the equation there on Saturday was that he just ran the centre halves and he pulled them out of position. He just occupied them and he really made life difficult for them. And then, you've also got two wing backs as well. So when you're playing with the wide three, you have that option for the wing backs to go forward anyway. So I think the two works in that sense anyway.
Yeah, and defensively as well, just on, from your kind of experience as a centre-back, Kenny, where, as you said, having the extra body in midfield, maybe people look at it and think, it's taking away in an attacking sense. But, that player that can break the lines and you're not quite sure, are they more defensive or are they kind of making late runs into the box? It's so hard to defend against. And Jason Knight did it well.
He did, yeah. So we look more secure when we lose the ball. We got that flat three now in midfield. Josh Cullen's probably playing a little bit deeper than the other two. It's almost a little kind of shallow V formation there in midfield, but that makes us more secure in there, better protection to the back three unit in behind. And you've actually got, the whole compact nature of the team. Even the front two are actually in contact with the midfield. When it's at its best, you've got about maybe 10, 12, 15 yard distance between the front two and the midfield three, and likewise the midfield three to the back three. So that's your kind of defensive unit right there. But you're right, you can break very quickly out of that. We know how important kind of, quick counter-attack transitions are in the modern game. But to do that, you need people with pace who can actually break out from those defensive positions in possession and out possession. And with the likes of Jason Knight and Malumbi, we can do that. Even Alan Brown, who kind of done his shifters in that right wing-back position, he's at his best for me in one of those central three positions. I'd love to see, he'd love to play in there, I know that, and have that kind of freedom to break out from there and get in the box. We know how good he is arriving late into the box as well. So I think there's plenty of permutations in terms of personnel for the manager when he looks at that midfield three. He might even look at the game tomorrow night, Raf, and think, I'll take Josh Cullen out, who's started the last 3 games. I'll put a different type of anchor in there. I'll put Conor Hurley in there. Wouldn't be as strong defensively as Josh Cullen, but he's a very good passer with the ball, more of a quarterback. So these are the options that you have now with that 3. It gives you some real kind of interesting combinations in terms of the 3 that you play in there. And also up front, obviously trying, Obafemi have made an impression already, but I'm sure those other centre forwards, I think, are looking for an opportunity to play in that system as well.
And Kenny, do you think we're looking at a very new looking back 3 now tomorrow with Egan and Duffy both missing, so it's probably looking at like Nathan Collins, Darragh O'Shea and Darragh Lenihan. So I suppose they'll be looking for that bit of extra support defensively on front of them as well, won't they?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Obviously, we've been dependent on Nathan, Shane and John predominantly the last couple of games, but with Shane being out, I'd imagine we're going to see Nathan lads come into the centre of that front 3, and that'd be interesting because then potentially going forward, that's kind of his position. He's kind of mature into centre of a 3, and then it'd be just interesting to see who Stephen flips either side of him. Darragh Lenihan is an obvious one, left side of a 3, and the Stevens won't get a mention now in that position. But for me going forward, that's probably a position with suits ended a little bit more, playing on that left side of the 3. He's a very competent defender and very comfortable on the ball. And that's what Stevens is looking for on that back 3 going forward. People who are very comfortable receiving the ball and playing forward. And that's been one small thing. I wouldn't say it's been a negative in the last couple of games, but we've given away some big opportunities to opposition teams. Scotland's a classic example of it. We were so much in the ascendancy, but there was key moments before half-time trying to play out. Shane Duffy in particular, I'd have to say, looked a little bit uncomfortable being asked to play out in those kind of deep defensive positions. We gifted 2 chances to John McGinn. So that'll be something for the manager to look at going forward. We know that he's been an absolute colossus for Shane in terms of his defensive qualities and his impact in kind of both boxes. But the manager will have to balance that up in terms of his ball playing ability as well, particularly when the likes of Andrew Diallo comes back into the equation as well. We know how good he is in possession, how comfortable he is in terms of travelling into kind of central midfield areas as well. So, but I think that's quite exciting, lads. That's not a downer. That's almost a positive in terms of, we've got players now with the capability of coming into this system now in terms of this 5-3-2, which is invariably what it is. And I think going forward, we're going to be better for it. We're going to be better out of possession. We're going to be harder to beat. We're going to give up fewer opportunities. But I also think we can spring forward from this not a defensive shape, but this current system that we saw against Scotland. And I think we can be a real threat as well, particularly in kind of counter-attack.
Yeah, and Alan Brown, actually, as you mentioned, playing at right wing back, which would be sort of out of position for him when he's more used to playing centre midfield. The fact that Matt Doherty's that sort of wing back, who's more used to kind of drifting inside and connecting with either midfielders or some of the forwards further forward, do you feel that was why Alan Brown was brought in? Because he can almost play that position in a similar way rather than being kind of like an overlapping wing back?
I don't think that was the reason. I think he's capable of doing that, Alan. I think he's done it for Preston on occasions. I don't think he's wholly comfortable over there, to be honest with you. He's got more real defensive responsibility as a right wing back. At times you have to defend as an orthodox right back alongside your centre halves. And that's something which he wouldn't really be used to playing in kind of an orthodox midfield 2 or 3. But he's disciplined and he does it. He's got the legs, the athleticism, to get up and down the pitch as well. Matt is the obvious one, I think, in that area of the pitch. He's outstanding play as a wing back in the modern game. You're looking for somebody who's kind of compact, competent defensively, but who can not only get forward, Raf, but actually who's got the ability actually to beat people, on the last third of the pitch, get on the outside, come on the inside, play little 1-2s combinations. I think Matt's the best one we have in that area of the pitch. I think it's probably I wouldn't say we're lacking in that area of the pitch in terms of wing backs, but I think we're not as strong there maybe in terms of wing back positions as we are in the back three and centre midfield. You haven't mentioned Mefesti Ebosele is an interesting one. Like, he's been in the squad, hasn't had any game time at all, Raf, isn't he? But a little bit I've seen him play. He occupies that area of the pitch, right winger, kind of right wing back. Maybe a little bit surprised. Maybe he hasn't had some game time. I know all of these games are important and there's huge consequences in terms of where we finish in the group. I'd be really interested in seeing that young lad play, just get an opportunity in that area of the pitch and maybe throw Alan Brown into that central midfield area where he's more comfortable and he carries that real kind of goal threat arriving into the box. Not too sure we'll see it, to be honest with you. The young lad hasn't played up until now. We probably won't see him start tomorrow evening. But again, he's an interesting one for the future. He just signed U21s, Ed, isn't it? It's a 5-year deal at U21s. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see his development over the next couple of years over in Italy.
Interesting on the Matt Doherty question. Stephen Kenny, one of his gripes after the Ukraine match was that the team weren't taking their time with it. They weren't building up with patience. They were a bit too direct, he said. And I suppose I pointed the finger at Cyrus Christie because he said when Matt Doherty plays, he's a natural playmaker in that sense. So his role there is not just a wing back, but it's also building the possession. And I suppose when Alan Brown came into the right wing back position, everyone assumed that he would be just there to occupy and nullify Robertson, and he did that. But he did it, and he also had the attacking option. So he did a great, he put in a great shift there, and it was almost a bonus that he was able to add the attacking element to the role as well.
I think long term, Raf, for me, it's Matt Doherty in that right back position. That's how you'd see. But then you have to look over to even that left wing back position. Who was our best option there? I don't think there's one player who's really grabbed that position. Ender's had a bit of time there. James McLean, we know, can occupy that position well. Roy Manning's an interesting one. I've mentioned Festi Ebosele there, so I'd love to see him play. Roy Manning, in other words, had very little kind of game time. He's ticking a lot of boxes in terms of playing time at kind of Swansea. It is that kind of a natural position for him. Again, what I've seen him play, kind of very competent kind of footballer, but again, hasn't had that opportunity. So just those positions we need to nail down going forward. If this system is to really kind of flourish going forward and we're going to commit to it, just those wing back positions, we need to maybe find somebody at left wing back position, just commit to them going forward rather than maybe constantly just, different body from kind of game to game. Just get that bit of continuity, Raf, in terms of all areas of the pitch, back three, midfield three, that partnership which I'm talking about, even those kind of wing back positions, just kind of settle on who's our best two in those areas of the pitch.
Right, I mean, the big thing, lads, as well, that looking at the game on Saturday, one of the great things was the spontaneity and the creativity within the system. Like, when you're looking at Ireland the last two games, I thought they looked like a team that were wedded too much to the system. Like, you could see the pattern of play. I get the ball here and it goes here and then it goes here and then it goes back here. But it became really predictable and a bit stale looking. Like, when you bring in the likes of Obafemi and a Parrott and an Alan Brown in that position, they just do something a little bit different. Like, I thought the second goal on Saturday was a really, really great goal. Like, just for Ireland to carve a team like that open from general play, it's just two lads, like Obafemi first away, just peeling away from his man, but then that little bit of vision plus the run, great finish. Like, I thought that was a great goal. And then even the strike, like, I could be wrong here. I can't remember Ireland having a shot from outside the box definitely not against Armenia. It just takes a little bit of personality to back yourself from 30 yards, because a lot of the time it's going to sail into the stands. But Obafemi is that type of guy. He's got a bit of cockiness, a bit of arrogance, backs himself. I think the keeper maybe could have done better, but he hit it. It's a good hit, gets it on target, and it's a great goal. So I thought, like, it's amazing, like that just a little bit more personality and confidence in the team within that system, and it suddenly goes from looking very by the numbers and where they're going to play and what they're going to try to do, to not only from general play, but I thought Ireland's set pieces were much better on Saturday. So I thought McLean, actually, his deliveries were on the money a lot of the time as well. And then, you're mixing things up. You're a threat from dead balls, you're a threat from crosses out wide, and you have something coming through the middle from the likes of Parrott and Obafemi.
Yeah, what's interesting, you mentioned the first goal, the link up play between Obafemi and Troy Parrott. What a lot of people weren't talking about was how the ball actually got to Obafemi's feet. How did it get there, Anthony? Can you remember?
I can't off the top of my head, but like it was.
Let me tell you.
It was like
a 60-yard goal kick.
Right.
Queen Kelleher up the pitch. Troy Parrott competed for the header and it bounced to the feet of Obafemi. So all well and good in terms of, look, we spoke about in terms of getting caught in the edge of the box and nearly costing us 2 goals. So for me, it's not one way or the other. It's a little bit of both. And particularly when you have 2 players up the pitch, there's 2 targets up there. They don't have to be 6'5" to compete for headers. All they have to do is make a nuisance of themselves, and then you're picking up second ball and playing from there. And we scored a goal. So that's the first thing to say for people who say, oh, we're not a long ball team, we've got to go away from that. That's kind of Neanderthal stuff. It's not Neanderthal stuff. It's smart. And we actually gained from it at the weekend. I'd actually disagree with you a little bit in terms of when you're playing. I understand what you're saying in terms of a little bit of freedom, the Obafemi goal. I think forwards always have that type of freedom, Anthony, in the last third of the pitch. I don't remember playing with any managers who say to forwards, look, when you get the ball 5-10 yards out of the opposition box, this is what you have to do. There's always a certain level of freedom. I actually like to see us play with a little bit more fixed patterns of play, to be honest with you. I look at it differently to you. When I look at that Armenia game and all the possession that we had, for me, there was actually too much freedom, too much kind of movement, playing off the cuff head of the ball. I don't think we built enough sustained attacks in the Armenian half the pitch. And that was because I didn't think we had enough kind of fixed patterns. Without wings backing off the ball, I don't think our 3 kind of forward players really got themselves in positions to link up with the wing backs and actually receive the ball higher up the pitch and kind of build pressure. Little fixed patterns like centre forward sliding across, having it into feet, people joining in. So really kind of fixed pictures in people's minds what we're going to do when we get into the opposition half the pitch. I didn't see that against Armenia. But I tell you what, when you have a pairing up front, Anthony, it really helps you. If you're a midfielder and a wing back and you pick up the ball in the opposition half the pitch, now we've got 2 centre forwards playing high up the pitch, 15 yards apart. No reason for them now not to be sliding across the pitch and offering themselves up. When Jamie Cleans gets the ball, if it's Alan Brown, those wing back positions, they should always have a pass into the centre forward's feet now, into feet. And if we can make that ball stick 30 yards from the opposition goal, then that's a real gateway then. Then we've got the likes of Jason Malumbi joining in from deeper positions, running beyond the ball. We've got centre forwards combining the last third of the pitch, little ball around the corner, maybe little kind of 1-2s. So I'm the opposite. I like to see fixed patterns of play on the pitch. And I actually think there's more to come from us in that respect. That wasn't a perfect attacking performance for me against Scotland, but it was. It's the first time we've played that particular system, but I think it can actually get better. I think we can get our front 2 more into the game, and if we get our front 2 more into the game, then that midfield 3 will join in, wing backs will join in more. We'll have more possession, more sustained attacks on the opposition goal. So I'm quite excited because that, as good as that performance and result was against Scotland, Anthony, for me there's actually more. There's a lot more we can tap into with this system going forward. So that's kind of why I'm quite excited, looking forward to the game tomorrow when ahead.
Yeah. Ed, what did you make of Scotland? I mean, we're sort of coming out thinking it was a drubbing of Scotland, but when we're 1-0 up, John McGinn should probably equalise for them. You know, I think it was 60 seconds after the Parrott got the second goal. Like, were Ireland really good, or were they just way off colour? Were they even a little bit complacent coming over?
I just don't think. I don't think Ireland really allowed them to settle, and to be honest with you, they looked a bit clueless. You know, they seem to rely on that, you know, fast pace down either flank and with just balls into the box, and hopefully that, you know, it will drop to someone. And McGinn should have just, especially the second one, he was coming onto it lovely, and it was a case of placing it into the bottom corner. I know the Scottish journalists were very irate after the game in the press conference. They really had a go at the manager that they weren't able to work out playing around Shane Duffy, and if they can't do that, you know, what chance have they got? You know, but a little bit unfair on them perhaps. But you know, I think Scotland have just built a good team and they were on a good run. So, you know, in that sense, they can have the confidence to go and win matches with the likes of Robertson racing down the left side, and then, you know, if you got goals, they're winning games. But they didn't get it going in Dublin, and even when the first second goal went in, they couldn't react.
It looked like a bit of a hangover, Anthony. I know they had the game against Armenia, but just felt as if this game once almost mentally, physically shot a little bit after the disappointment of losing to Ukraine, and just couldn't steer themselves, just couldn't find anything from within the group when they went to goal two goals. And easy to criticise, and I probably did a little bit after the game. We were all expecting a lot more from them, but I think we've all been there. You know, end of a long season, but just more importantly to suffer the disappointment of losing out to Ukraine in the manner which they did. Very difficult then when you come into a game and you're under the cushion. We were playing well, the crowd was up, we were getting around, making tackles, disrupting them, making it difficult. You know, it can be difficult at times to really muster up the energy and the reserves to kind of face that up and kind of, you know, pull yourself back into the game. They just weren't capable on the day. I wouldn't say they accepted the defeat, Anthony, but they just couldn't find anything, couldn't dig enough into their reserves to find the type of performance they needed to drag themselves back into the game.
And look, do you know what was interesting as well about the squad? After the World Cup defeat, one of the keepers packed it in. He said that I'm done with international football now. Is it Marshall?
Yeah.
He called it off. 2 more lads were going off to get married. So it sort of showed where the priorities lay with the Scottish squad, that, you know, they weren't even thinking of the Nations League games.
Thinking of their misses, thinking of their bloody fact, you know, their halves. Cheek.
That's admirable, you know.
Football comes first, Ed. We all know that.
But look, you know, Enda Stevens is getting married, but he didn't, you know, he's getting married next week. But, like, you know, it was arranged when the international calendar was over, not when the first game was over, you know. So
Yeah, I suppose a final point on the seniors that we didn't really touch on, although Kenny, you touched on it a little bit with the combative nature of the Irish midfield, but Jason Malumbi coming in and playing alongside Cullen, what did he bring to the party? Because I think initially it seemed that it was sort of under the radar, but then the more the game went on, I think it was kind of obvious that he was bringing another element there that maybe had been missing in the couple of games before.
Yeah, so I think what he brings, Jason, he's always had these attributes. He spent some time a couple of years ago in the under-8 setup, but they were even evident then. Just kind of real kind of physicality, tenacity to that kind of central midfield. Probably best epitomised in the lead up to the third goal. You know, that crunch and tackle which he won halfway inside their half. Ball drops to top part of pass into Obafemi, and the rest is history, as they say. So everybody's talking about the quality of the finish. You know, clever little pass from Troy Parrott, but again, not too much mention of the tackle, but it's so important, not just in setting up things, but also in disrupting opposition teams as well. You know, just kind of intercepts, you know, winning the ball back, just prevents opposition teams from developing any type of momentum. So he has the kind of physicality, tenacity in there, and legs, of course, as well. I think he could be an asset to us. I think there's more to his game actually going forward. He's got that ability to arrive in the box. Now, he's not kind of, I suggest at the moment, a kind of ball-playing midfield. He's not going to get on the ball and dictate the game in there. In fact, he's the type of player at times I'd be encouraging him to actually stay away from the ball, allow the ball to allow the ball to go from back to front, and then join in. Use that kind of legs, that physicality, that dynamism which you have to arrive late in the box, and, you know, get your fair share of chances and goals there. So he has that. I mean, I spoke about Josh Cullen coming out of the game maybe tomorrow. It might be a case of the likes of Conor Hourihane going in there. I think Jason Malumbi going forward can occupy that holding midfield position. You certainly get that kind of physicality and bite in there when he's in there as well. Just needs a little bit more maturity to his game to understand the role. You have to be a little more disciplined in that kind of holding midfield role. You know, you can't be charging here, there and everywhere, but hopefully that kind of maturity will come into his game, and he might well be able to occupy that holding midfield position going forward as well. This is what I'm talking about, that kind of three in that midfield shape. It's kind of quite interesting in terms of who we can move around in those positions. But yeah, that's what he gave us. And Anthony mentioned kind of personality there. I think he's got that as well. You can see it a little bit in terms of himself, the jersey, his relationship with the jersey, how much it kind of means. So I think that comes through as well. The only thing I'd say to him, I think he's got to temper a little bit that aggression, tenacity. He's just got to temper that a little bit as well. At international football, you have to keep a cool head. Yes, you've got to be fired up and kind of energised. We're all kind of motivated. We've got the jersey on to go and play. But you need to realise at times you just need to turn it down a little bit as well, and just kind of remain calm and get the heartbeat down a little bit as well. So they're just the small little modifications he'll have to do to his game going forward. But yeah, I think he's going to be an integral part of the squad going forward. How much? that's probably down to him in terms of those small little tweaks, kind of modifications he can make to his game, and just keep improving basically. And if he does, he's going to be around the international setup for a long time.
There was one thing, Raf, in the Ukraine game I noticed. There was spells of the game, especially as the game went on, where Ukraine held onto the ball and put sequences of 20, 30 passes together without Ireland getting close to the ball. Now, they didn't end up going anywhere. But again, it's energy sapping, and it's going away from the way Kenny wants to play. So I wonder if there has always been so much emphasis on what the team are doing with the ball that they sort of overlooked a little bit of what they did off the ball. And I think, what they got the system against Scotland, it was very evident that they were pressing all over the pitch, and they really seemed to be working on getting the ball back in minimum time.
Yeah, but you need to have that balance in your team. So when the opposition team have the ball, at some point you need to get it back. There's got to be a trigger at some point, whether you're pressing high or you're pressing low. But some players are better at it than others, Raf, in terms of the ability to get across the pitch and make tackles and get close, and just better understanding in terms of defensive side of the game, just better defenders, better kind of defensive mindset. They just do better in those situations. So you look at Jeff, who's played for us previously, and Jeff's a lovely footballer, high technical ability. We know the qualities that he has in terms of drifting forward, linking up with the front three, etc., etc. But when we're out of possession of the ball, we don't see Jeff in the game because he hasn't got those qualities that I've just been talking about. Now, the likes of Jason Malumbi has them, Josh Cullen has them. Jason Knight probably has a little bit of both in terms of that little footballing ability and a bit of tenacity as well. And within that kind of midfield three, now rather than a midfield two, Raf, where you're thinking we can't really carry a player who can't defend, that kind of high quality technical ability, that's not enough in it. So in a three, you look at now and think, you know what? We can throw Jeff in. I think maybe we can afford to put Jeff in there. If we get another couple around him who can protect them out of possession, or Conor Horan maybe can come in there as well, because we got the added safety net, the extra third player in there. So that's all good for me. That really strengthens. That one small change which the management team have made, just taking one of those forward midfield three players, Jason Knight to a small extent, and dropping them back 15, 20 yards further down the pitch in contact with those other two midfield players. For me, like that potentially could be absolutely huge for us going forward.
Yeah, and Ed, before we let you go, obviously we'll talk about the under-21s very, very briefly, but in terms of the team news, because as you're talking about the out of possession, it's going to be crucial, and probably more so because Ukraine, I would imagine, are going to be a bit stronger this time.
Well, look, I suppose you'll have to wait and see what they come up with, but they essentially played the reserve team. If you're going with you imagine they would have played the strongest team in the World Cup playoffs, so they just weren't able to put them out against Ireland, and 2 or 3 days after the Wales game. So you imagine they're back to full strength now, and you can only expect that they're going to be better and more. Just bring more quality.
It doesn't actually bother me if they bring their so-called stronger 11 in, because that 10 changes they made for that game, Raf, in Dublin. But for me, the level of performance, there wasn't actually that much of a drop-off from what I'm saying to play. So I play against Wales, obviously, and Armenia, obviously, the game against us. Very, very, very similar in terms of level of performance. They played so well, so consistent. So for me, and that's what making those 10 changes. So I'm not overly bothered if they bring those 6 or 7 players back in. I still think we're going to be facing what we saw in Dublin not too long ago. The difference being, for me, we're far better, well prepared now to deal with their kind of threats which they have in their team than when we were in Dublin maybe a couple of days, a week ago.
I think the manager sort of gave the same appraisal of the team as well. He was saying whatever, if he plays this team, there's 5 or 6 quality lads left out, so it's much of a muchness. They've got a really strong squad and very similar style of players that can all just slot in and out.
Yeah, so Ukraine versus Ireland in Lodz, as Ed has correctly pronounced, I think, a couple of times. Wodge. Okay, Wodge. I've got it right there, finally. 7 o'clock, RTÉ2 and the RTÉ player on Tuesday. But before we let you go, obviously 4 o'clock, we've also got the Ireland under-21s who are playing Italy and Ascoli, and knowing a win will be enough to qualify for a historic first ever European Championship. Kenny, what have you made of the last 2 games in the window so far, and in terms of the mentality going into Italy now, when at least they have the basis of knowing a playoff is secure. Does it give them that extra bit of motivation, I guess, that they can almost just throw everything at it?
Yeah, I'm not even too sure extra motivation. I'm sure that would have been there. I've just less pressure, really. Before Italy played Sweden, we were all looking at where we think and draw. That's the ideal, because then we know we're guaranteed that kind of playoff, and we've almost got a free hit. Now, a free hit suggests, Raf, the lads, go in there with their kind of flip-flops and like Bermuda shorts. There's no pressure. It's not like that. There's always pressure. The pressure, there's a certain element of pressure there now in terms of we've got a real shot now. Yeah. We've got a real shot of actually topping this group. So there's still pressure there, but the fact we're guaranteed that playoff spot, it absolutely does help. There's no doubt about it. So I'm so confident. We were talking about the fact that we're a bit devastated games so close to where it's tomorrow. So we're trying to organise a day around getting somewhere. We've got to watch it. It would be great to see tonight, sit in the hotel and sit down together as a group and watch the game, because what an opportunity for those young players to really create history, be part of the first under-21 squad that qualifies for a major final. And they've got a great chance. Similar in terms of what I'm saying about, we talked about us in that Scotland game in terms of the setup being looking as if, bang, we've got it. 50 minutes in that Scotland game the other night, you thought, yeah, that's it. You can see it. This is it. This is far better. But we've probably been saying that about the 21s for a couple of games now. I'd even roll it back to the 2 games against Sweden, home and away, where we kind of found something there and it's rolled on since then. Raf, and we got a real strong spine to the team. I'd imagine a young Jake O'Brien, talking about the back three, the senior international team. Jake O'Brien, Mark McGuinness, Jake O'Brien in particular, very young, outstanding young talent there. Your goalkeeper in top form, Brian Maher. Centre midfield, Conor Coventry and Gavin Kilkenny's an absolutely great, working in tandem with each other the whole qualifying campaign. And then the managers kind of dovetailed a little bit in terms of further up the pitch. Will Smallbone has been prominent, isn't he, in the last kind of couple of games. So they're playing well, good frame of mind going into the game, kind of reasonably consistent in terms of the team selection, Raf. So it's all in place. And bear in mind what we said again in terms of not a huge amount of pressure and what's at stake for them. I can't wait, to be honest with you. I mean, people say, we got the playoff anyway, but there's no guarantee with the playoff, Raf. We all know our history in terms of senior and under 21, in terms of there's always potential heartbreak down the road there. And I think the key for the Italians is, yes, they're in the ascendancy, but we've just got to stay in the game, Raf. And I don't, we're 60, 70, 80 minutes into the game, 0-0, whatever it is, few goal scoring opportunities. The longer this game goes, the edgier they're going to get. The edgier they're going to get, knowing one goal, they're out. So for me, people, I get an early goal. Forget about the early goal. I'm not greedy for an early goal. I'm just greedy going into that last quarter of the game on level terms, 0-0, and seeing those Italian players tense and kind of lock up in the last 15, the pressure, coming into their game, as opposed to us going to that last 20 minutes thinking, right, we're in the game now, let's go and win it. Let's go and win it and get the biggest prize of all.
Yeah.
And the one thing the great thing about the 21s now, for the first time really since I can ever remember, there's just a natural link between the 21s and the senior team. It's almost like, you can see these players, as you mentioned, the lads in defence, the lads in midfield. They're always being readied for the senior team, and they'll be there in the next couple of years, no doubt.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that they're able to get the result that they want and kind of avoid the playoffs. But I know you mentioned flip-flops and Bermuda shorts there, Kenny. I think, as you said at the very top, doesn't
Ed's got his shorts on. Ed's got his shorts on.
Yeah.
Screen. Are they on screen?
My knee is on screen.
Oh, milk bottles. 2 milk bottles. Oh, horrible.
Well, as you said, anyway, because we're going to let you go now. I presume you can't whip out any of that kind of clothing anyway. If you look out the window there, I'm not sure what it looks.
I'm ready.
You're dressed for the weather.
I'm heading out for a coffee after this.
Yeah, get yourself a coat, Ed. All right, best of luck, lads. Anyway, enjoy tomorrow, and hopefully you get to catch the 21s game as well beforehand.
Yeah, cheers, lads. Have a good one.
All right, so that is the dynamic duo of RTÉ Sport Online's Ed Leahy and former Ireland defender Kenny Cunningham. Very good crack there, Anthony. Obviously, they don't look like they're dressed for the weather that they were kind of telling us about there. But more importantly, on the under-21s in Ascoli tomorrow, 4 o'clock, RT2, the RT player. as Kenny said, you know, they might look at it slightly as a free hit, but if they can stay in the game, obviously Italy are the ones that have something to lose. And as we've seen so many times in the game, that can have a detrimental impact on a team.
You know, I think Ireland will fancy themselves. I think they'll actually quietly fancy themselves. They won't say it. Jim Crawford won't come out and declare it or bang the drums too loudly, but I think they will. I mean, the game against Italy in Dublin they've taken a lot from that, because there wasn't a lot in that game. That was a tight game of football. Italy got the goal, and then they got a breakaway goal right at the end, so that, you know, to win 2-0. But Ireland were in that game. They really competed with them. And they're, as Kenny said there, they now look like a more settled, cohesive outfit than they maybe did at the start of the campaign. Don't forget, like, there's a lot of turnover of players coming into the 21 squad. It's just the nature of the thing as well. And I think, as Kenny says, like, they don't need to go and chase a win, like race out of the traps here. Like, they just got to keep themselves in the game. And we know that they're capable of living without the ball. Like, when they went to Sweden, they lived without the ball for large chunks of the match, and they were fine. They were well organised. They were able to sit in. They had good shape about them. And they have individuals that can pull a rabbit out of the hat, that, you know, small bones in really good form. They've had a nice block of time together as well, so they've been able to build, you know, work on certain things. I think their set pieces are really, really great. You know, they're always clever and something a little bit different, and you never know. Like, I mean, it could be just something like that, a little short free kick or a corner or something. But the key is, yeah, keep yourself in. Obviously, you know, it's stately obvious, but you don't want to give up an early goal, or you don't want to find yourself 2-0 down after an hour. Like, there's no way back, because Italy are good. You know, they're a good side. They are missing a few players, I think, the Italians. But look, this is a chance for Ireland. This is a chance for them. You know, it's obviously a massive ask to go over and win there at any level. But I think Ireland, among themselves, will fancy this. They have players. Kenny was talking about some of the younger players in the 21s. They have, like, at that level, sort of veterans, like the likes of Coventry and Lee O'Connor. Like, these guys have been around for a few campaigns now, and they'll know that this is a chance. And I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, if they did it, it would be absolutely just a brilliant achievement for them, and a great achievement for Jim Crawford. But look, worst case scenario, they're going to have a playoff in September. But I do believe that Ireland are going to go over there, and they are going to believe that they can win.
Yeah, because I think, in a way, I think the Bosnia and Montenegro games were possibly, especially on the mentality side, probably harder to go into in a way. I think, as Jim Crawford had said beforehand, they were the ones they were really targeting, because obviously Italy was a good bit, another 8 days after that second game, and you're not necessarily going to be thinking about that straight away. It was definitely first get that Bosnia game, which was probably the hardest one to come into off the back of the season. As I said, I was up in Abbottstown talking to him a few weeks back, where we were discussing kind of team selection and how they're going to look at the squad, because in terms of some players' seasons would have ended at the start, like at the very start of May or even the end of April, and then you have the League of Ireland lads who are still ongoing, and then obviously the lost Colin Whelan as well. So yeah, it's they've arguably, even though Italy are the hardest team they're going to face, arguably the hardest challenges have been hurdled already.
Well, I think there was more pressure on those games. Like, they knew they had to win the 2 games to get that playoff spot. So they've done that now. And as you said, like, they've been in camp together for longer. And the longer you're together, you know, you can build it. There's already a good spirit and a camaraderie about the group anyway, but you can foster that. Good results help, you know, wins obviously help that. And then they can, there's no doubt, like, Jim Crawford and his backroom team are going to have a game plan, and they'll have been working on that the last few days. They're going to go over there with a specific plan. As I said, like, listen, like, I wouldn't rule out Ireland scoring off a set piece over there. I just think I'm really impressed with them off their dead balls. They put a lot of work into them, you can tell. And then within that, they have some really good players, like quality players. So look, we're all looking forward to it. Like Kenny says, like, you go into the playoffs and it's, you know, you don't know what you're going to get. It's perilous, and there's never any guarantees. But it is a safety net. I mean, that would have been the realistic target at the start of the campaign. They've done it with a game to spare, and that's even with, you know, they drew with Luxembourg. They lost in Montenegro, so it wasn't completely smooth for Ireland. You know, they had to show a bit of character to keep things on an even keel and get back on track. So really looking forward to it, Raf, and I think everybody's really willing and behind this Ireland team to do it, because it would be a serious achievement. First time ever to get to an under-21 finals if they manage to pull it off.
Yeah, I know, it would be huge. And as we know, as you said there, playoff pain is something we know from past campaigns going back to like Euro 96, World Cup 98, and a few others since as well. But also, as the Italian senior team will know, the playoffs for World Cup or whatever it is paved with pitfalls. So for those, we've those games back to back. So the Ireland under-21s, just as a final reminder, on RT2 and the RT Player from 4:00 Tuesday, and then followed straight after at 7 by the Ireland seniors, who are playing Ukraine in Poland. So before we go, we'll talk about a few domestic matters. In the Women's National League on Saturday, there were some very interesting results. The leaders, Shelbourne, losing 1-0 at home to Wexford. Sligo Rovers losing 5-0 to Peamount United, who started to pick up form again. Cork City 2, Treaty United 1, and then Galway 0, Athlone 0. And then a few days earlier on Thursday, DLR Waves and Bohemians also drew 0-0. So, what we were saying last week, the margin for error for Shelbourne had grown over those previous weeks because Wexford had stumbled, Shelbourne had stumbled, but then Wexford put in a performance like that and get a result like that, and everything changes. And even Peamount will be looking at that and thinking, we're not completely out of it.
Oh, that massive game. That was a massive win for Wexford, because they went into that game 8 points behind Shells. So, Shells had won that match. It's 11 points. But I think there's still about 13 matches to go. So, not mathematically gone or anything like that, but realistically, that's a huge gap to try and claw back. Now it's 5 points. And the nature of the game, the nature of the win, they hung in Wexford. They went with a game plan where they frustrated Shelbourne. And the goal itself from Jess Lawler was a bit of a free goal. The keeper, Amanda Budden, went to clear the ball, and Lawler just charged it down and cannoned into the net. Now, the nature of that sort of goal and that win, you can imagine what it's done for Wexford, but also to Shells. I mean, it's a real psychological shake for them. And having snuck the title last season to sort of come from nowhere, come up the rails, now Shells are the ones being chased down. And they've been chased down by two good sides, Wexford Youths and Peamount. There's nothing, there really isn't much between the three of them at all. There really isn't. Wexford Youths, when they bet Shelbourne in the FAI Cup final last October, November, chatting to the players afterwards, and the likes of Kylie Murphy, they said before and after that match, they want, it's great winning a cup. They want to win a league. They feel like they should be challenging to win a league, and they really weren't that far off last season. Shelbourne, I know I keep saying it, but they are going to lose Saoirse Noonan, which is a blow to them. So I did say a couple of weeks ago, it did look like Shells were in control, but there's a long way to go. There'll definitely be twists and turns in this, 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if this went right down to the wire again. Peamount, Shelbourne, and Wexford Youths again, and then other teams like Athlone are improving, but probably not. An actual title challenges beyond them at the minute. They're improving at a rate of knots, but just it will be the usual suspects again. And I don't know, is it that game on Saturday, that could be, that we could look back on that as the decisive moment for Wexford Youths. That was a massive win for them, really was.
Yeah, and it's a similar dynamic in the men's first division, where Cork City and Galway obviously are kind of duking it out at the top, but neither of them were in action on Friday. In fact, it was Athlone, the men's team this time, actually getting their first win of the season, beating Cove Ramblers 5-2. So they're still bottom, but at least it's the first win of the season, and they move a little bit closer to Cove in the battle to avoid finishing bottom of the division. And then Wexford drew 1-1 with Treaty United, and Longford Town drew 1-1 with Bray Wanderers. And it's that last game where it was more matters off the field, or at least on the margins of the pitch, where there were some issues, and in regards to people in the away section. So there are statements there. So a teenage boy was arrested under the Public Order Act, and Gardaí were called to Bishopsgate Stadium at around 9 p.m. after they were alerted to a disturbance involving a small group of supporters inside the ground. And then the SSE, or Trustee League, released a statement in which they said the League of Ireland and the FAI strongly condemned the behaviour of a small number of spectators in the away section at the Longford Town v Bray Wanderers game on Friday night. We are now working closely with the Gardaí and both clubs to ensure those responsible are held accountable for their actions. The FAI has a zero tolerance policy towards this type of behaviour, and will take further action once the Garda investigation is concluded. So it's not the first time on this podcast we've discussed Bray Wanderers and a section of their away fans, because there was an issue when they played Wexford a couple of months back, and it was something with James O'Toole that we discussed here. On that occasion, it related to sort of like not a physical confrontation, but there seemed to be some sort of divide between Pat Devlin, the manager, and some fans up in the stand. Again, the Gardaí are going to investigate this, but it's obviously it's not something we want to see in the league.
Well, no, I mean, I would say the incident, I would say that I would class it as different to the Devlin incident, what happened at the weekend, because to attack stewards, volunteers, that it's not football related. Like, it happened within a football setting, but that's just, that's people obviously looking, causing trouble and going way over the line. You would hope that it looked like it wasn't a huge group of individuals. So hopefully, the club and the Guardian, I know they've already started to identify some of the people involved. Look, it's unsavoury, Raf. I think we're in an era as well where, a lot of these incidents are captured on phones and camera phones. So like it makes it easier to sort of weed it out. And it really has to be weeded out, like as strongly and as quickly as possible. Take it away from the football, whatever it takes, ban them from the grounds, identify them. And beyond that, there's not much more Bray as a club can do, like, bar that. But it was the footage that came out was not nice to see.
Yeah, and Bray Wanderers also released a statement condemning the behaviour of that section of fans that were involved. But as the league said, the Garda investigation will take place first, and then whatever outcome comes from that. So that's it for us this week. But we will be back on Wednesday with a review, with a kind of the full podcast reviewing both the 21s and the Ireland-Ukraine game. So I'll be back for that anyway. And Anthony, thanks a million for taking the time. And obviously it was great to have Ed and Kenny on as well, the dynamic duo over in Lodz, or I'll get the pronunciation right eventually. But anyway, thanks a mil.
Cheers, Rob.